When the outdated tactics get left behind, it's time we stop. Marketers look around when your ranking's going down. It's the Jim and Ann Show. Today, we have a special day because we're here with Dwayne Forrester, who is the VP of Industry Insights for Yext, and he's been there for over 5 years. In his past work, he also worked for Microsoft and Bing for more than 9 years, where he was a senior product marketing manager with Bing, and he helped to run the Webmaster Tools program and the SEO program at MSN. And he's the author of a couple books on how to make money with your blog and how to turn clicks into customers. And he was the Search Personality of the Year in 2014. He's a speaker at SMX, PubCon, SEO Oktoberfest, and a whole bunch of other conferences. You can find his writing on the Bing Webmaster blog, the Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, etc. Writes in all sorts of places. And with all that intro, we are happy to see Dwayne here.
Jim, and thank you both very much for having me today. This is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Dwayne, we have so many topics that I would love to talk about, but I want to jump right to the image behind you because it looks so interesting. I see UX, links, SEO, charts. Like, what is that? Could you explain it to me?
Yeah, so I was on a call with somebody. One of our sales team had put together a call with one of our clients, and the client wasn't particularly well versed in SEO, although they had someone on their team who claimed to be an expert. And so I pulled together the diagram here, trying to help everyone understand the complexity of SEO today, because they had one person telling them, no, it's really simple, right? You just research keywords and then you write content for it. And that's pretty much all you need to do. And I was trying to get them to understand how it's more like a pond. Okay. Now, admittedly, my pond is a cube. So, bear with me on that, right? I'm very linear in my thinking at times. So in my world, a pond should be square. That's how I'd build it in my backyard. It's like throwing rocks in the pond, right? You get this ripple effect, right? So you compress all your images because you want to speed page load times. Okay, so that's a technical SEO thing, but that's a ripple in the pond. And then that goes out. Except you think, okay, I'm going to track that. I'm going to see, I made that change. I'm going to see what happens with it. But along comes someone over here who's leaving reviews about your website. And that reputation work that's happening over there, the ratings, the semantics, the understanding that Google has of the words that are used, the sentiments that are being extracted, that now puts energy into that pond as well. And so if you were to float a little rubber ducky on here, it wouldn't just travel in a straight line because it has converging lines of energy from different locations, which means you can't just sit down and say, oh, I'm going to do one thing here, and then I'm going to go to the opposite side of the pond and pick up my rubber ducky. You cannot do one thing in SEO and think you're going to see the exact result represented in reporting somewhere. It's never like that.
Well, it's so interesting because one of the biggest questions we always get is, how do you measure this?
Yeah.
And I totally get what you're saying. There's all different areas going on. And if everything was in a vacuum, maybe you could measure something, but things are never in a vacuum.
Man, listen, SEO is the squishy science, right? There's you can barely hang on to it, right? It's like trying to grab a handful of cloud. Like, you can see it, it's there, but when you get into it, you try to hold it, there's nothing. It's a bit mind-boggling.
And it seems like, if that pond is your website, you need to be continually making ripples in there.
Constant as well. We also have to factor in things like this, growth over time. So for every signal that's in here, there's a component of the growth of that signal over a time frame. So the number of views you get over the time period, and is that increasing or decreasing? And how does that compare to your peer group and your industry and your historical footprint? Like, I want people to think about, if you look at the page speed insights tool from Google, right? love it, hate it, doesn't matter to me, right? They do a 28-day snapshot. So they look at things over a 28-day period. And so they're creating this cascading flow of 28-day blocks where they're comparing those blocks against every other 28-day block. Now, in fairness, it's a 24-hour window because every block advances by a day. So every 28-day window is now a 28-day window tomorrow and Friday and Saturday and so on. But it's discrete blocks of data where they get to say points on a graph. How is your vector looking growth over time?
I kind of relate that as well to, I picture that, the search engines have scores for pages. Maybe it's based off of the page or the phrase, but when let's say you change the content on a page, and let's say Google maybe thought you had a low score page. Let's say it was thin content or near duplicate.
Right.
And people always want to be like, all right, if I change it, I should immediately, they think if they change it, they'll immediately see an effect, but it's more like you've had this score over time.
Yeah.
If suddenly you're getting new scores, slowly over time, you might reach kind of that optimal score, but it's not going to be like, boop. It's going to be like your scores are being recalculated over time in a sense.
So if you were an ass to your neighbor all year, and at the midpoint of December, you started taking their garbage can back to their fence for them on the garbage day, do you think you're getting invited to the New Year's Eve party? Probably not, because most of the year you were an ass, and that's what you're being judged on, right? And there's a lot of that happens where it's this trust but validate, and that validation takes place over a period of time. So if you were a thin content website for 5 years, and I can't imagine any website thinking this is a rational approach today, but let's say you were thin content for 5 years, and then you woke up one day and said, hold on, that's not going to work. I need depth and authority. Okay, well, look, you can go write the content and put the depth in there, but what you don't get automatically is anybody else pointing at it saying that's a useful resource, because for the 5 years prior to that, you weren't a useful resource, so you didn't have the authority. And so it's going to absolutely take time for that to finally accrue to you. Like, I didn't get these gray hairs in the last week, right? Like that took 25 years in the industry. Come on. Like,
so what are some of those other items on that board? What's below the growth over time?
So that is something I'm working on about rewiring your brain, and it's how our minds are all about pattern seeking. That's how we developed, evolutionarily speaking. It's all about pattern seeking for us, and that ability to see a pattern. So what the jungle looks like, and the pattern changed, that might be a threat. And so the problem with that, or the opportunity with that, is that pattern seeking is how we approach looking at information in search. It's why the words you put into the search bar are bolded in the results down below, right? It's pattern seeking. So it's that concept. And ultimately, it's all about retraining ourselves to get out of a rut. Okay. And then there was a quote I came across that is the difference between a rut and a grave is just depth. And I thought, okay, yeah, I really like that, because that pretty much nails it, All
right. So Dwayne, on your chart there, I see we've got UX, links, SEO. Yep. Looks like local and reputation. Am I reading that right?
You are.
And so just out of curiosity, do you feel that those are 5 of the most important factors to a website?
Well, those are 5 important factors. The reason they ended up in my square pond is because that's what came to me when I was writing it up. There are a ton more that could go in here, right? Like, you guys know this, the pond is near infinite. And if you want to break out SEO, like we're talking like size 2 font up here, when you start breaking out all the components in that, and then charting the ripples that those have. So there is a lot more that ends up as a part of this. This isn't the only thing. However, I will say this: technical SEO, UX, of which I consider internal link architecture to be a key part of your UX. Local Local is a thing if you're into local. A lot of businesses wouldn't be. If you're in e-commerce, then that's fine. That doesn't need to exist in there. But reputation management, yeah, that's for everybody. In fact, I firmly believe that if you want to go out and you want to do all your SEO and you want to like crush it on your technical, that's awesome. You do that. Because I'm going to show up with my business and I'm going to work on crushing it with reputation management. And we'll watch and see whose pipeline is fatter and fatter over time. And it's probably going to be mine as reputation grows, because Google and Bing will forgive technical failures all day long if you're the best answer for a question according to consumers. So that's a very big part of this equation, right? You think of healthcare, for example. Everybody wants the best doctor, but rarely does a doctor's website give a good user experience. And let's be clear, a lot of them aren't even basically optimized well. So we're not talking about they're winning because of actual technical SEO or links or any of those things, not UX. They're winning because everyone in that community knows them to be the best GP in the community. So when two friends tell two friends and they tell two friends, it's all that doctor by name. And that doctor becomes a localized, high quality search that happens over and over again. And despite the poor UX and the poor website and the poor optimization, they are dragged to the top of that stack over and over again. Because Google knows if I just tell you that Dr. Jim Boykin, if I just give you that answer because everybody asked for Dr. Jim Boykin, it doesn't matter that his website is crap. What matters is that's what you want. And as the consumer of Dr. Jim Boykin, as your potential patient, I'm going to call and I'm going to book an appointment. And then I'm going to call, I'm going to book an appointment. Maybe every now and then I'm going to use the website. And as long as I can click on book an appointment as a button, which pretty much every doctor's website has, it doesn't matter how painful the experience is after that. You're a doctor. I need to see you. I will go through your painful process and fill in the blanks. But outside of that, when it comes to things that are much more our everyday lives, for example, I was doing research recently about credit card trends. And it turns out that a lot of people now are not into travel rewards cards. They're into things that give them everyday rewards. Like, for example, I have an Amazon Prime credit card because I want the 5% off and I want the discounts when I order food or when I pay for gasoline and things like this, because I want those credits to pile up in my Amazon account because I do a lot of shopping on Amazon. So it's that type of cycle. I don't really care if I get a free hotel room somewhere. Like, that's whatever. I'll pay for the one random hotel room that I want, but I want, a free, I don't know, action camera to film my jeeping in the desert.
Well, what I don't see in your chart on here is content. And
yeah, okay.
Part of that, and everything you're talking about, I know one of your specialties is kind of researching what is the content plan, what's the content that needs to be written. How do you do that?
For the purposes of this diagram, Jim, when I talk through it, content lives in UX and SEO. Okay. That's where I would talk content into the diagram, not breaking it on its own, but you could easily put it in the white space up here. I do believe that if you were to break this out as, say, a focus, so you had individuals who are in charge of different things, someone might have a UX specialty, someone might be your technical SEO person, another person is in charge of reputation management. You could definitely have somebody leading content up here. Like, that makes total sense to me as a structure inside an organization. I'm going to throw content in with UX because people aren't coming there because of your page template.
It's interesting. I feel that so many companies overlook UX.
Oh, yeah.
And it's probably one of the biggest areas I think is overlooked. Like, people searching for services don't even think of that, or something. No. I guess kind of tied along with that, maybe conversion rate optimization as well. Look around.